Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Our today's webinar is going to be a really international event because we have participants from different countries. And we believe that today's meeting will transform into advanced academic activities. This webinar is organized by Danilo Halitsky Lviv National Medical University, Ukrainian Council of Science Editors, and Shevchenko Scientific Society. And it's a big pleasure and honor to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Armen Gasparian. Dr. Armen, you can share with us your screen. Yes.
So you can see my screen. Everything is fine. Yeah, with the screen sharing. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Associate Professor of Medicine, Research Fellow in Teaching Trust of University of Birmingham, UK. I'm also editor and editorial board member of several general medical and rheumatology journals, and also consultant of several journals, clinician, author, and reviewer. So I've got many hats, and I have several academic and other affiliations and commitments towards several professional societies, particularly towards Ukrainian Council of Science Editors. It's a relatively new society interested in upgrading standards of writing and publishing in Ukraine and Eastern Europe and expanding cooperation with fellows in Ukraine and neighboring countries. Today, we are going to discuss some of the important article types, particularly important in the time of COVID-19 pandemic. And first of all, we are going to discuss online survey studies. So these studies are registered as in MESH, Medical Subject Headings platform. Probably our participants know about these, the importance of this platform, medical subject headings. And they probably also know that once a keyword is registered with MESH, Medical Subject Headings, the visibility of all articles tagged with this, with the registered keywords increases. So relevant keyword for today's presentation is surveys and questionaries. Usually surveys and questionary studies are interchangeable terms. Questionary studies are commonly used in Western Europe, in Britain. Surveys are more common in Americas. So, but both represent the same. Both are considered as qualitative research studies, mostly qualitative, because results of these studies are mainly based on qualitative analysis without rigorous statistical analysis. So survey studies are usually based on qualitative analysis by experts. So in MESH, we have strict definition of surveys or questionary studies. These are collections of data obtained by surveyees or a subject who respond to questionary invitations, submit their opinion, and these opinions or subjective evaluations are processed by survey organizers or contact subjects, usually there is one contact person responsible for survey studies, and we'll discuss how survey organizers record information in questionnaires, and how they record information about contact person, how to contact, how to discuss survey questions. So usually medical science benefit a lot from survey studies. Again, in the time of COVID-19 pandemic, these are now main study types because of quarantine, because of limited ability of patient contact. All online surveys are organized using available platforms, online platforms. Today we are not going to discuss other types of surveys based on postal communication, based on telephone contacts. We are going to discuss online surveys based on dissemination of information via social media, contacting surveys, potential surveys by emails, by other online options. Before discussing standards or reporting points for survey studies, we should know that all types of articles require reporting standards. And for medics, these reporting standards come from Equator Network. So there are few articles or guidelines, practice guidelines, discussing how to report surveys, and these seminal articles are archived by Equator platform, Equator Network platform. So one of the most important reporting standards is Cherries, or standard which was published years ago by Internet Journal of Medical Research, and most journals, medical journals adhering to Equator Network standard, advise their authors to consult Cherries standard and structure their survey reports in line with these standards. However, there are also other standards or updated recommendations. So today we are going to discuss altmetric analysis. Before discussing altmetric analysis tips on these type of analysis, we should know that more and more authors use altmetric information from altmetric.com platform. Why we need this information? Because we cannot evaluate individual articles solely on citations. We need alternative information which comes from different social media aggregators or platforms like altmetric.com, Plum Analytics. We'll discuss this platform a bit later, but at the moment I just would like to present this example of altmetric evaluation of this individual article. Cherries reporting standard. You can see altmetric attention score. You can see also mapping of most activities, country-based activities. In this particular case, most social media activists interested in this reporting guideline, Cherries, come from US. We also should pay attention to particular social media channels related to individual articles. And again, in this particular case, we have a few Twitter users who commented or tweeted on this article. But the most important point for evaluation of this individual article is about citations. So we usually pay attention to citations coming from Scopus and Web of Science platforms, but there are also other emerging platforms for citation counting, particularly Dimension, and of course, Google Scholar. Dimensions and Google Scholar are search engines liberal towards processing articles, covering articles, not as strict as Scopus and Web of Science, and all articles with digital object identifiers are processed and covered by Dimensions and Google Scholar. So altmetric.com platform analyzes Dimensions citations, and you can see that in this particular case, Cherry's standard is well cited. So it's relatively old article published in 2004, years ago. And at that time, social media activities were not as important as and popular as now. This is why this particular article has much more citations compared to social media metrics. So, but pay also attention to Mendeley platform. Again, Mendeley platform is an individual library for researchers. It can be also used for predicting citations. Usually, Mendeley bookmarkings or Mendeley readership activities correlate positively with citations. So pay attention to these Mendeley activities to predict citations. As I mentioned, there are several important guidelines related to online survey reporting, and the second important article is about good practice in the conduct and reporting survey research, also archived by Equator Network platform. And this article is also well cited, slightly less compared to previous reporting standard. And it's mainly because of its old age. It was published in 2003. Usually when we deal with social media and altmetric analysis, we pay attention to recent months or year. And we may also extend our social media analysis to 10 years, latest decade. Because before 2010, social media channels were not as important for research and dissemination as now. Again, we see that these reporting standards also well bookmarked, archived on Mendeley platform. So even if our researchers from Central and Eastern Europe and Central Asia do not use Mendeley platform, they may take a lot of information about activities of other researchers using different types of articles, bookmarking, archiving in their individual libraries. And these estimates, Mendeley estimates, are important to evaluate importance and so-called impact of individual articles. So always pay attention to Mendeley bookmarkings, dimensions, citations, and some of the most active channels for dissemination of articles. In this particular case, we see that Twitter is the main channel for dissemination of information about this article. Our colleagues, our moderator, Olina Zimba, and our Indian collaborators also drafted updated standards on reporting online survey studies. And I strongly encourage our today's participants to adhere, to consult and enforce points of reporting online survey studies in line with recently published article. So hopefully this article will be better disseminated on social media, on Twitter, other channels, and automatic attention score of this article will grow soon. How to define survey studies? Usually, survey studies are used in social research to evaluate or to receive opinions of population, specified population on certain subjects, on certain topics. Online studies usually allow to cover large groups of population, and therefore social science benefit a lot from survey studies, whether these are online, telephone-based, postal-based. These types of studies cover large groups of population. Most surveys rely on standardized questionnaires. Before launching, before starting your online or other survey studies, you need to have standardized questionnaire or validated questionnaire acceptable or endorsed by several keynote experts in the field. We'll discuss how to validate, how to so-called standardized questionnaires to have online surveys based on standardized approaches. You probably know about cross-sectional analysis, and online surveys are also cross-sectional studies, evaluating opinions or feedback of population within short period of time and focusing or concentrating on certain points, certain topics. Causal relationships are not investigated by online studies. So we call these types of analysis snapshot analysis at certain period of time. These are descriptive studies, and as all descriptive studies, we need a working hypothesis, an idea behind online study. So before launching your online study, you need to know why at all you need to analyze opinion of professionals, patients, large population groups. So you need to formulate your hypothesis, and based on your hypothesis, you may also envisage subjects interested in your survey study. So target population of your survey also depends on your hypothesis. For original research studies, we often need working hypothesis. There is only one exception. For clinical epidemiology studies, we don't need working hypothesis. We may perform clinical epidemiology studies to examine prevalence of or incidence of clinical conditions without having formulated hypothesis. But for all types of studies, we need working hypothesis. We'll discuss today review articles, and I'll tell you that scientific hypothesis as standalone research studies differ from working hypothesis. Now I'm talking about working hypothesis for original research, and surveys are considered also as original research studies requiring well-formulated working hypothesis. For online surveys, we need certain sample size. However, compared to several other original research studies, these sample size not always require sample size calculation. We'll discuss again a bit later. Sample size of online studies. We may choose deliberately choose sample for our online surveys without having standard deviation from previous studies, without using any calculation formula. And we may also ignore confounding factors. Usually for cohort studies, in medicine, we pay attention to confounding factors. Let's say in cardiovascular medicine, in rheumatology, we consider age, cardiovascular factors, comorbidities as confounding factors. However, for online surveys, we may ignore all confounding factors and analyze clinical condition or awareness of certain conditions in a certain population group without paying attention to their numerous confounding factors, level of education, age, without correcting for all these confounding factors. As I mentioned, we are not considering causal relationship in survey studies, as in, let's say, in cohort studies, in prospective clinical trials. In surveys, we again ignore causal relationships. Which are aims of online survey studies? Simple description of the current situation, the next year, at any next period of time, the situation may change. So we should strictly define our period of investigation. Usually, surveys allow to analyze awareness of experts, specialists, nurses, educators in a certain field, not necessarily scientific field. It may be social field related to social science, psychology, behavioral science, other types of life activities, exercise activities, etc., etc., or approach to certain diseases, approaches to clinical interventions, drug therapies, etc., etc. But online surveys allow us to calculate percentages of certain clinical conditions in a certain well-defined population group. Sometimes we may use a series of online surveys. Let's say educators usually use longitudinal studies to evaluate knowledge or awareness of certain clinical conditions at the start of training and after post-training. These type of longitudinal studies are also informative, and we may also compare percentages at the beginning of training and at the end of training. Survey studies allow us, of course, to analyze exposure to certain factors using longitudinal surveys or one single survey analyzing exposure to knowledge, exposure to information by our targeted population. So let's say awareness of COVID-19 outcomes based on exposure to social media, TV, newspapers, etc. As a researcher and editor, I use Scopus searches on a daily basis. And here I presented an example of analysis of online surveys in rheumatology. At the moment, based on Scopus data, there are 129 online surveys related to rheumatology. And as you can see, initial online surveys were published back in 2005, and the annual number of online surveys increasing on annual year by year. By using Scopus analysis, we may visualize journals most active in this field or publishing online surveys, particularly in the field of rheumatology. You see these index journals, Scopus and Web of Science index journals, actively publishing online surveys. Nowadays, most journals welcoming online surveys, but before COVID-19 pandemics, clinical journals or journals focusing on clinical subjects were reluctant to process online surveys, considering these studies as social or qualitative research studies. But nowadays, qualitative research studies and social sciences studies are also important for researchers, clinicians, due to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. We may pay attention who are active author in this particular field. From Turkey, we know Cesar Ozen is top scientist who has published 9 online surveys related to rheumatology, but there are also other experts in the field of rheumatology interested in online surveys and regularly publishing. These numbers are relatively small. However, each of these surveys, I know details about these surveys are organized by large rheumatology societies, and this is why even small numbers of online surveys are attracting a lot of citations, a lot of social media attention. We should also pay attention to citation ranking of online surveys, particularly in the field of rheumatology. Here are some examples of titles of online surveys, and based on these titles, we better understand aims and populations covered by these surveys. Let's say in Musculoskeletal Care Journal, cross-sectional survey analyzed awareness of nurses in a particular professional field, in the field of arthritis. Recent survey by pediatric rheumatologists published in Seminars in Arthritis and Rheumatism looked at influence of COVID-19 pandemic on pediatric rheumatologists' practice. So it's also important to know how certain factors or exposure to certain factors like pandemic changes feedback of professionals or changes their demands in training, in education. So based on these examples, we understand how important are online surveys, particularly because these online surveys are published by indexed journals, top ranking, highly cited journals. So we should also arrange and publish more online surveys to better understand needs of our patients, training needs of our specialists, nurses, clinicians, educators, etc., etc. Why online surveys are important and valuable? First of all, because they allow to cover large groups of population. Online dissemination of questionnaires allow to receive large number of responses uh, in a short period of time. So speed and timeliness are important for all in the context of online surveys. Uh, Convenient. These type of studies are convenient, easy to arrange, and collect valuable data for processing. And of course, these are inexpensive studies without requiring large funding from grant funders. But of course, as any studies, these type of online surveys also require some basic funding for acquiring access to advanced uh, survey platforms like Surveymonkey and other proprietary platforms, uh, analyzing spending time of for analyzing data. So, however, grant funding for online research is limited, and I think that nowadays professional societies considering encountering or facing financial limitations will consider arranging online surveys to evaluate feedback of their specialist, their membership. So these type of studies are valuable, considered as qualitative, mainly qualitative research studies. Um, some of online surveys are well studied, well cited, and well promoted on social media. So influence of these type of studies also relatively high. We should know also about points on good surveys. Usually, surveys are conducted by expert in a field. However, I know that PhD candidates are also advised to analyze uh, their topic of interest by arranging online surveys. So PhD dissertations benefit also a lot from online surveys. So even novice researchers may benefit a lot, not just expert scientists, but also novice PhD, novice researchers. But uh, what they need to know, both novice researchers and seasonal researchers, they need to know uh, topic of their study in depth. So they should understand why they need to arrange online survey and aims of their survey, potential outcomes of their survey. Without understanding, without predicting outcomes of online surveys, uh, researchers may arrange survey without having influential outcomes or outcomes that may change clinical research, education, and other fields of our activities. So researchers should understand why at all they need to do research, online survey. Uh, they need to know which platforms are well suited for online surveys, particularly Surveymonkey. Surveymonkey is an advanced platform for arranging for disseminating information about surveys and then reporting surveys uh, accompanied with eye-catching reports, eye-catching graphs. So Surveymonkey is one of the important platforms our researchers should acquire. So topic of research study should be well defined. It should be structured well, and we should consider demographic information about interest of our surveys, and limited number of questions to is to allow our researchers complete surveys within shortest period of time, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Usually 10 minutes is the most convenient period for most researchers. So we should consider also arranging reminders, announcements at the start of online survey, and regular announcements, regular contacts to potential surveyees, potential respondents within a few days, within 1-2 weeks. Usually online surveys last several weeks, up to 3 weeks, because uh, if we extend period of online survey, we may have unreliable or uh, variable data. So shortest period of time should be considered for online surveys. And sample size, usually we have a large number of respondents uh, for online surveys. However, we should consider also some methods of sampling. I'll discuss randomized or non-randomized sampling for online surveys. And of course, as all online studies, at the start of doing research, we disseminate information about online surveys. And once the survey report is published, the same surveys, the same respondents read, discuss on social media, and may also cite in their articles results of survey studies. So we need to have advanced platform, whether it's Surveymonkey or Google Forms or other platforms, and we should be familiar with graphs that maybe can be generated using these platforms, Surveymonkey and other platforms. Here I presented one of our well-promoted and well-cited survey results about awareness of COVID-19 and misinformation on COVID-19. We see here, based on our survey, that social media channels are considered by most surveyees as the most valuable channel for sharing information, but at the same time, the same respondents consider social media channels as a source of misinformation. So, and these graphs generated by Surveymonkey allow us to visualize responses by our respondents and understand which particular topics are most important. So we should pay more attention to social media to disseminate validated and ethical information to avoid misinformation. And we should also use different platforms. I discussed briefly Surveymonkey, which is available as a free platform for short surveys. For larger surveys or surveys with a large number of questions, we need access, paid up access to Surveymonkey, or we may also use Google Forms. In Eastern Europe or by novice researchers, PhD researchers, Google Forms also widely used. So Google Forms is available on Google. So researchers may simply register with Gmail and have access to Google Forms to operate. And one of the latest articles from Iran analyzing misconduct in their country, also based on covering roughly 20,000 individuals. They received responses from about 10% of their population, so relatively low response rate based on percentages. However, when we analyze, we see that numbers are quite impressive. About 700 participants responding, and we see that among respondents, plagiarism is one of the most important types of research misconduct. So they frankly reported that plagiarism, or about 100 participants encountered plagiarism in their research or conducted plagiarism. So these type of online questionnaires using validated advanced forms helpful for understanding prevalence of certain conditions, understanding importance of certain conditions, and targeting these conditions like uh, plagiarism. Another latest example coming from Turkey, Turkish medical faculty students who analyze sources of information on COVID-19 in the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic within 3 days from March 24 to 27 in 2020, and they again use Google Forms. We see that 1,375 students responded, so it's relatively it's large number of respondents, and they calculated percentages of those who used different types of information to understand better COVID-19. So this type of information is important to understand which channels are important to target, where we may change or may have stricter approach to validating information dissemination. Again, when we deal with COVID-19, we may again use Scopus bibliographic database, and we may combine bibliometric and altmetric searches and understand where information is more prevalent on which social media channels. Here I used approach to analyze online survey related to COVID-19. And as you can see, more than 3,000 articles have been reported so far and indexed by Scopus. Most of these reports, online surveys on COVID-19, are discussed by US researchers on social media, particularly on Twitter. We see here a large number of Twitter users commenting on online surveys on COVID-19. And overall, altmetric attention score is also quite impressive. We should pay attention to this donut ring to better understand these reports, online reports. But again, we pay attention to dimension citations and Mendeley bookmarkings. Here we see more than 5,000 Mendeley book activists bookmark these online reports, online survey reports, and we may also predict that dimension citations will also increase. Usually researchers bookmark articles first, then read, process, and cite these articles. When we analyze these cross-section of articles on online research, online surveys on COVID-19, we see that most of these online reports, online survey reports, are authors by researchers from US, UK, and China. But of course, many other countries concerned with COVID-19, India, Brazil, Spain, are also active in publishing online surveys in the era of COVID-19 pandemic. Some of journals, particularly International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, online journal, is quite active in publishing online surveys. So usually public health experts conduct online surveys, and I think that today's participants, particularly from Central Asia or Eastern European colleagues, pharmacists, clinical pharmacologists may also use online surveys to better understand implications of drug marketing or certain public health interventions. When we analyze methodology of exemplary studies, we better understand that online surveys should adhere to principles of reporting cross-sectional studies. Timing should be limited within few weeks, and sampling should be well defined. You probably know about snowballing effect. in online surveys, we use that effect when an initial sample of our respondents share information about online surveys and attract new respondents. So we call this effect snowballing effect. It's useful for attracting a lot of respondents. Survey studies also require ethics waivers or ethics approval from institutional research boards, but overall, we need confidentiality, anonymity for conducting surveys. At the beginning of mm, survey questionnaires, we need to inform our respondents about confidentiality, about aims and implications of our online surveys. It's also an ethical requirement. Ethics waiver is required. Ethics waiver is required in some countries, particularly in India. Some countries allow publishing ethics online surveys without obtaining or without discussing surveys with ethics committees, but usually it's safe. It would be on safe side to obtain ethics waiver or ethics approval of online survey. At the beginning, you see that an article published in Clinical Rheumatology uh, informed readership that there were no any requirement to register study with ethics with institutional review board. Another study from in the field of rheumatology, we may pay attention again to ethics approval and informed consent, how these important points are addressed by authors of online surveys. So usually at the validation stage, it's necessary to revise, validate, and ethics ethics review, partial review may also help to find out which points of online survey require revision. Questionary is the essence of online survey. It's usually based on previous studies, previous similar surveys, but if there is no any example, we may simply generate our own online survey based on our knowledge of topic or our previous publications. It contains preamble information about aims, justification, anonymity of the online study. It should cover relatively all points related to questionnaire. Layout should be attractive. When you put a lot of text in your questionnaire, you distract attention of our readers. So try to be concise, use short sentences, and try to test at the beginning. Ask 5-10 colleagues, friends, to revise, to fill in and help you to revise your questionnaire. Layout is important. It should include categorical, Likert type questions, interval questions, and ratio questions. We should avoid questions containing answers. We should avoid merging several questions into one. So each question is a single, should contain a single point. We may use multiple choice questions or closed questions, and rarely we use open questions because open questions require more time to fill. Respondents should think more to answer to open questions. Number of questions should be limited to 20, 25, 30, and filling out these questionnaires should take 10-15 minutes. At the start, it is necessary to revise questionnaires, and in methodology, you also tell your readers how many times you revise. You collect your questionnaires within shortest period of time and close your questionnaire study within 2-3 weeks. And it also depends on your sample size. We know about randomized and non-randomized sample sizing for online surveys. Usually we rely on so-called convenience sampling. When we see that we received 200 questions and we are satisfied, we see that responses are okay, so within the frames of aims, so we may terminate online study based on convenience sampling. But there is also so-called targeted sampling and snowballing sampling. So we discussed snowballing sampling, targeted sampling when you cover all subjects, and let's say in hospital you ask all staff members to fill in your questionnaire. It's called purposive or targeted sampling. When you know that there are 1,000 or 1,000 nurses and you ask all of them to fill in these questionnaires and process all 1,000 questionnaires. When we have convenience sampling, it's easier, but usually sizes are lower compared to targeted or snowballing sizes. Okay, now it was last slide for this presentation. I am open to questions, comments. Guys, please be active, ask your questions, comments. Olena? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and asking our fellows. I need your feedback. Any questions? So Neslihan Gökçen asked a question. What do you think about ad hoc survey? Can we conduct a valuable survey study with a survey that is not validated and is created according to our expert opinion? You know, Neslihan, thank you very much. From Kocaeli University, Turkey, clinical rheumatologist. Thank you for this excellent question. I understand why you asked, because most clinicians like to have surveys with quick results, with quick, easy made questionnaires. Yes, you may generate this type of survey. However, note that you still need validation or feedback of your colleagues. At least 2-3 colleagues should share their second opinion, should guide you, should advise to include or exclude some question, make your questionnaire easier to fill in. So this type of validation is important. We are not talking about standardization, not talking about large number of validators. Simply, you know, experts in your field of interest and you ask them to help you revise your questionnaire. Are you satisfied with this type of answer, Neslihan? Okay, good. Usually during online meetings, we lack touch, human touch, but still I see that some of you are active. Thank you for asking this question and responding quickly, sharing your feedback. Again, there is another question from Neslihan Gökçen, second question. Would you recommend calculating sample size before starting a survey study? So it's not necessary for certain online studies. Let's say we conducted a study on plagiarism awareness. and limited our convenience sample size to 200, around 200, without calculating sample size, without referring to previous studies with standard deviations. You probably know that we need standard deviations from previous studies to use it for sample size calculation. But for online surveys, particularly non-randomized online surveys, we may use convenience sampling or so-called snowball sampling. When we ask our respondents to fill in questionnaires, and at the same time, we ask them to share information about this questionnaire, and this trick allows to increase number of respondents. So it's called snowballing. Again, we don't need any special formula to calculate sample size. However, for randomized sampling, particularly for hospital-based surveys, we need randomization, and we need to randomly pick respondents from our large population. We cannot cover 2,000, 3,000 participants, and we use software to randomize our participants and to pick certain computer picks certain respondents, and sends the same software sends surveys to certain respondents. So it's called randomized. For most other types of surveys, we need non-randomized or so-called convenience, snowballing, or targeted sampling. Okay. Thank you very much. I expect more questions from you, Neslihan, or comments on other parts of today's meeting. Professor Jerzy Konstantinovich, thank you very much. He shared his positive comment that everything is clear and comprehensive in the presentation. Of course, I couldn't cover all topics related to online surveys, but my main message today is if you are going to report, to arrange and report survey studies, first of all, try to validate, try to register with your ethics review board. And when you report your survey study, consider it as a qualitative research analysis, not quantitative, not based on robust statistical analysis. Simply understand knowledge of your respondents, which points require special attention, let's say in the era of COVID-19, and amend your clinical practice, train education, or research, or even journal editing. Journal editors also regularly arrange surveys to understand, to get feedback of their authors, to understand which topics are important for journals. So today we have Alexander Ivanovich Smyan from Sumy University in Ukraine, and I know about his journal. He is one of the leading journal editors from Eastern Europe, and I hope that he will also use online surveys to better understand feedback and needs of their readership. So another question from Neslihan Gokchen: if we create a new questionnaire, is it necessary to compare it with validated ones? So I feel that this question again comes from a clinician, great clinician. We have different types of surveys for clinicians. Let's say Delphi studies based on expert opinion. We may use Delphi studies, but I purposefully omitted Delphi surveys, Delphi discussions, and concentrated more on more liberal form of online research, where any specialist may take part, may share opinion. Delphi studies are usually for close circle of experts. let's say EULAR or other professional studies, conduct Delphi studies and send their questionnaires to their circle of colleagues registered with EULAR. We may arrange online surveys without prior validation, without having any analog of our surveys. So we may arrange our survey based on our knowledge without using any previous questionnaire. So, but these type of surveys need response of colleagues who are still experts in their field. Validation may involve few subjects, few experts, 2, 3, or 5. And based on validation, we revise our online surveys, and in methodology, we report how we validated, how we revised, how many times, which parts of our survey were revised. A question from Svetelina Kostova, probably from Bulgaria. Thank you, Svetelina, for your question. Hello, can you please explain again why the maximum period for conducting online survey should be 2-3 weeks? If I understood, okay. So why we should limit period for online surveys? Because as all cross-sectional study, as any other cross-sectional study, online surveys reflect opinions, reflect feedback of our study population at certain period of time. When we expand this period of time, situation changes, and responses at the end of our survey may be different from responses at the beginning of our survey. The best surveys, of course, or the best cross-sectional studies are arranged within 1 day, within 1 or 2 days. However, we cannot cover this large population, 1,000, 2,000 participants within 1-2 days. It's impossible. This is why we may extend, we may wait a few more days, few more weeks. We may limit our online survey to 1 month, but if we extend, reliability of our data decreases, and influence or importance of our data also decreases. So be very careful with timing. And if you receive small number of responses within few days, you should activate dissemination. You should use different social media channels, different platforms to cover larger samples and to obtain more feedback. Use social media channels frequently. If you know your target population, let's say Americans, you use or Anglophone subjects use Twitter. So use Twitter channel to disseminate information. In China, you may use their national social media channels to target Chinese respondents. In Turkey, you may use Instagram. I think the same in some Central Asian countries, Instagram. So our timing depends on our population. If we know that Europeans immediately respond to our surveys, we may limit our convenience sampling to 1, 2, 3 days or weeks. In other countries where data collection takes more time, we may extend to 1 month, or in some exceptional cases to 2 months. It depends also on subject of your interest. Professor Konstantinovich comments, what about pilot studies? Pilot studies, before online surveys. Sometimes smaller pilot surveys are conducted. Yeah, sure. Just to estimate the response rate. Does it make sense? Pilot surveys. Usually, pilot studies are okay. And we may also put pilot study in the title for original research, observational research. Online surveys are also observational studies. However, we never put pilot survey in the title. We may simply publish our initial pilot survey and wait some time, arrange another study, larger study, without calling it second study or large study, because we know that as a cross-sectional study, situation changes over time. So pilot study with small number of participants may be published, and then other colleagues, other groups, university faculty members may arrange larger study and publish the same online survey, but with different outcomes, reflecting situation in a different period of time. Okay, thanks colleagues and friends for your comments. We should move forward, and I am now going to discuss reviews. So let me share this screen. Now you can see my screen, and I'm going to start slideshow from the beginning. Good. Again, you may have some questions. Please prepare and use again chat box at the end of this presentation. So how to write review articles. Of course, smart people are skilled, informed subjects who avoid mistakes. I should also quote one of the Lancet editors who mentioned in his editorials for Lancet that the amount of writings of a profession is a measure of vitality, whilst their quality is a rough indication of intellectual state. So if you publish 100 articles and none of these articles is cited, none of this article is commented on social media, you lose point, you lose your readership, it's not good. If you publish an article, it should attract attention, it should contain citable points. And these citable points should be somehow distinguished, somehow discerned and presented to your readership to attract social media discussions, citations, usually positive, or critical negative comment citations as well. And of course, with review articles, with well drafted articles, we receive a lot of attention. To publish good articles, we need standards, we need recommendations, and these recommendations come from editorial associations. Of course, we are, our Ukrainian colleagues and friends are planning to develop and publish Ukrainian guidelines on writing different types of articles, but at the moment, we all need to know globally publicized recommendations. First of all, from International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, from Committee on Publication Ethics, their guidelines, their flow charts and recommendations or statements, Association of Medical Editors statements and editorial policy guidance, Council of Science Editors, US-based associations, white paper on ethics, on ethical writing, and of course, our linguists, our English experts may also benefit a lot from European Medical Writers Association. As editor, author, and reviewer, I've benefited a lot from following, reading, and discussing articles in medical writing journal. And I hope that our journal editors, particularly those publishing articles in English, also may read and follow guidelines from European Medical Writers Association. However, for all other journal editors, researchers, and research managers, recommendations from International Committee of Medical Journal or editors are important. These are called recommendations for the conduct, reporting, editing, and publication of scholarly work in medical journal. So, and you should use this title. You may see this title of recommendations in instructions for authors. I encourage all our journal editors to update their guidance by consulting latest edition of these recommendations. These recommendations deal with authorship criteria, quality journals, or opposed to predatory journals, how to report statistics, how to avoid nonsense statistical reporting, let's say based on simply p-values or significance analysis based on p-value without any clinical meaning. So be very careful when you analyze statistics for your original research paper. Any statistical significance should have not just mathematical, but also clinical meaning, clinical implications. References, how to search for good references, how to cite relevant and ethical references, and how to avoid citing retracted or bad quality articles. Most articles coming from Eastern Europe, Central Asia are rejected outright if reference lists contain a lot of non-Anglophone sources, poorly visible sources, or sources to their local ministries or local recommendations, public health recommendations. So limit number, try to balance, try to edit your references prior to submission to your articles to a good journal. Now about review articles. You're probably familiar with this slide telling us that review articles, narrative, systematic, or editorial articles, authoritative reviews, these are well-cited articles. And still, we need review articles to share information because we know that review articles are most read articles in journals, and these review articles are usually drafted by experts and contain several citable points, as opposed to original research papers containing fewer citable points and focusing on certain points. Which type of review articles we know? Some editorials look like review articles, and algorithm of PubMed platform, algorithm of Scopus consider articles based on length of reference list, structure of articles. Some editorials may be also processed as review articles. Authoritative review articles are written by well-known experts, Nobel Prize winners. We usually publish narrative reviews, but still with systematic approach. Narrative reviews with certain predefined focus and strict search strategy is called systematic review without meta-analysis, and quantitative reviews with quantitative analysis of data, statistical analysis, or meta-analysis are also considered as review articles. Is there any difference between narrative and systematic review? Note that narrative reviews, these difference is blurred, because narrative reviews are currently also required to use certain search strategy to inform readers how authors search through Scopus, Web of Science specialist database. Uh, of course, you see that search strategy for narrative reviews is advisable, not mandatory, but for systematic reviews is of course mandatory. And those who write systematic reviews may need support of information facilitators or librarians. Uh, Systematic reviews may be drafted in line with IMRAD structure, introduction, method, results, and conclusion. They may also use PICO tool or population intervention, comparator, and outcome, or study type. These type of tool used to process information, and in systematic reviews, it's often used. However, narrative reviews may also benefit from analyzing primary data, analyzing sources using PICO approach. When you draft tables for your narrative reviews, please pay attention to population, type of intervention, comparator, and also outcome measures, primary and secondary. When we compare scientific hypotheses with the reviews, we pay attention to strict structure of hypothesis. Some of you may also draft hypotheses on vitamin D in COVID-19, on the role of physical exercise in cardiovascular prevention, or other types of hypotheses. So for that, you need to understand, aim to formulate background, to retrieve source articles from Scopus, other reliable bibliographic databases. So for all our authors, Scopus and other reliable databases are mandatory. Then structure of hypothesis should include hypothesis itself, your ideas, then how you are going to test your hypothesis, predicted outcome of your studies in terms of clinical outcomes and ethical outcomes. Not all hypotheses lead to beneficial effects. Some may have also side effects. So those who propose vaccination, those who propose repurposing vaccination, let's say using measles vaccine, anti-measles vaccine to prevent COVID-19, it was also a valuable hypothesis. They should also discuss ethical implications, whether the subject vaccinated with measles vaccine will be protected, fully protected from COVID-19. At the start of COVID-19 pandemic, some initiated BCG vaccine study trial among clinicians working in clinical settings or hospitals. These subjects were vaccinated with BCG vaccine, anti-TB vaccine, and then continued their practice in hospital, exposed to SARS-CoV-2. So some of ethical implications were also negative. Some of them probably contracted COVID-19. So at the start, the authors of these hypotheses or clinical trials had to predict some of ethical implications. Narrative reviews are usually favored by publishers, highly cited, they contain updated information, and PhD candidates may also benefit from review studies. Some of review studies, systematic reviews, require adherence to equator network standards called PRISMA. Particularly when you report methodology, inclusion and exclusion criteria for systematic reviews, you should use PRISMA flowchart, and you should report processed studies, and at the end you should report number of articles used for qualitative and quantitative analysis, meta-analysis. Some of meta-analysis are produced in large quantities in China and other countries, and these useless meta-analysis without any clinical significance, or systematic reviews with meta-analysis based on analysis of laboratory data are useless, and the authors of these meta-analysis are harshly criticized. So be careful with meta-analysis. Authorship of review articles. Usually it's limited to limited number of authors. They should meet all 4 authorship criteria. They should take part in conception. They should understand ideas of review, draft or revise review article, approve review article for publication, and be responsible, 4th criterion, for all aspects of review article. Most review articles contain graphs, tables, adopted from elsewhere. So these type of articles, review articles, they require anti-plagiarism checks, and you should assure editors that all authors take full responsibility for absence of any misconduct, any plagiarism. Particularly for review articles, it's an important point. Also, ask all your authors to obtain ORCID identifiers, digital identifier of authors and researchers, and try to use it for your most influential articles. These identifiers are also used to increase visibility of your articles. Journal editors should encourage their authors to register, to fill in information about previous professional interests, current academic activities, and use these ORCID IDs for improving visibility, not just individual visibility, but also in the visibility of journals, departments, universities, and countries. ORCID IDs are usually used by most scholars, educators, conference organizers, and these are also valuable tools, valuable tricks to increase visibility of academic activities. Databases, particularly Scopus, which is the largest and one of the best bibliographic databases, also integrated with ORCID platform. When we deal with titles, we should pay attention to inclusion of all keywords of our reviews in the titles. These should be short, attractive, professional. Sometimes we may also put question mark when our reviews allow to reach a response to our questions. Some journal editors and reviewers may provide alternative titles based on their knowledge of subject and based on influence, predicted influence of review articles. Here are examples. So inflammation in atherosclerosis, written by Peter Libby and other experts in cardiovascular research, published in one of the top cardiological journal. They may publish this type of articles because they know a lot, and their trials, their previous involvement also relevant to inflammation in atherosclerosis. Lancet type of reviews deal with somehow different approach. They publish review articles specifically dealing with diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, and these type of articles are well cited, well commented on social media. So there is no need to use additional so-called redundant words like current, new, future treatments of osteoporosis. You may simply put osteoporosis and specify in your title what type of implications, what type of reflection you expect in your title. Let's say uh, um, blood disorders associated with osteoporosis, or uh, novel treatment of osteoporosis involving magnesium or calcium, etc., etc., etc. So different types of journals publish different types of review articles, and uh, different authors may use different approach. But try to avoid putting a term, a review in your titles of narrative reviews, because it's clear that even without narrative review, these articles are review articles. So let's say you never see seminar reviews in Lancet, like rheumatoid arthritis, semicolon, a review article, a review. So you simply see titles with single keyword, rheumatoid arthritis. You may specify what type of involvement in clinical reviews you are looking at. Let's say cardiovascular involvement in Behçet's disease. It's old review. If you are going to to perform a new review, you need to specify focus of interest. So you add cardiovascular involvement in Behçet's disease, and in second part of your title, you simply add focus on something, on platelets, on thrombosis, on arteries, on lymphatic lymphatic system or venous system. So please try to specify based on your knowledge of novelty of subject you are going to analyze. Sometimes it is necessary to put question mark to attract readers. It's trick which is used by some eminent authors, and it works, this trick. But the last example of title, not recommended, review antiplatelet agents, what comes next? You simply may use antiplatelet agents and comprehensively cover topic without adding additional or so-called redundant terms in your title. So be very careful, because based on your approach to title, you may attract or distract your authors. There are different types of titles: descriptive, declarative, and interrogative. So declarative articles containing a lot of keywords used to attract a lot of attention, a lot of retrieval via bibliographic databases. Descriptive usually contain one or two keywords. Interrogative usually attract readership by tricks, question mark, exclamation mark, but we never use exclamation mark in review articles. Exclamation marks may be used in short notes, in editorials, in authoritative reviews. Titles should reflect subject of the study, should be short, relatively short, informative, which means title includes all relevant keywords, and attractive. When you put osteoporosis, it's considered as buzzword, you attract a lot of attention because even public at large interested in osteoporosis. However, if you use something of specialist interest, you distract your audience. And of course, we need to understand attractiveness of our titles based on downloads, based on citations. So I hope that all our participants pay attention not just to citations, but also other article level metrics like downloads, particularly downloads for articles published in non-index journals. Poor predictors of citations are references to geographic terms. Let's say you investigate or overview Behçet's disease in Turkey or Behçet's disease in Poland or countries where Behçet's disease, non-endemic disease. This way you may distract your readers from other Western European or Americas, Western European countries or Americas. So if you avoid mentioning geography in your titles, you still may attract your readers, your social media commenters from other countries. Use this knowledge to improve structuring your articles. And of course, when you write narrative review articles, adhere to these relatively old recommendations, well validated, well commented, used in many reviews, hundreds of reviews. So try to improve, expand your network of colleagues. And when you write articles, review articles, benefit from their expert opinion, seek support of those who have access to bibliographic databases, let's say Scopus, Web of Science databases, CINAHL, and other. And when you write your articles, let's say you write first draft, ask your colleagues, co-authors to revise, and at the end, you may ask your medical writers or author editors to revise language. And of course, you need to acknowledge support, external support of your linguists, your author editors. When you structure your review, you increase credibility. Review articles without structuring, without graphs are not attractive, and you simply lose your readership, your readers' attention. Try to use keywords based on knowledge of subject, and always check whether the keywords used in your article or after your abstract are registered with medical subject headings. In introduction of your review articles, you should justify novelty based again on large cohort studies, clinical trials, or previous articles, previous review articles. Review is considered as publication type and registered with medical subject heading MESH. Reviews are comprehensive to some extent, narrative reviews. So you know about that. And the review as literature, as a topic, registered as a MESH term. Again, you should know if you are publishing review article and you deal with methodology of review articles, you may use this specific MESH term. The same with systematic reviews. We have publication type as a MESH entry, and we have MESH term, systematic review as topic, dealing with methodology, with retracted systematic reviews, etc. I use this approach, and I hope today's participants will also use this approach to understand whether there are articles with similar titles. Here I used review as a publication type, and operator, and I used reactive arthritis as a MESH term, and allowed me to retrieve about 1,000 reviews. So it's quite difficult to write reactive arthritis de novo. We should specify in our new article something new, something related to COVID-19, to our current situation. And we may also use mesh on demand platform, NLM platform, to retrieve relevant mesh keywords. Why we need mesh keywords? To increase visibility of our published articles and to receive more uh, uh, attention, more citation, more social media attention. It's all these activities are interrelated. Here you see an example of abstract. I encourage and I ask all our journal editors to structure review abstracts. You see, this abstract is structured because uh, to some extent it contains introduction, methods of review, main results, and main conclusion. So it has certain structure, though structuring keywords like introduction, methods, results, and conclusion are omitted. But still, this abstract of review article is well drafted, well edited, and well structured. We need more structured review abstracts to satisfy needs of bibliographic databases. So Central and Eastern European journal editors uh, should pay more attention to abstracts and should ask their authors to properly formulate, to draft, compose abstracts. For searches, we need more than one reliable bibliographic database. We usually search through PubMed platform, paying attention mainly to Medline indexed articles, but we also need Scopus, which is the largest bibliographic database. Sometimes we need to combine with uh, Web of Science searches, and pharmacy, pharmacology, toxicology, biochemistry specialists need access to Excerpta Medica via Elsevier access or via their institutional access. Nurses and other specialists need access to their specialist database available on information aggregator called EBSCO or EBSCO host. And of course, all our educators, lecturers need access. It's free resource Cochrane Library to retrieve systematic reviews, clinical trial reports, and of course, Cochrane database of systematic reviews is the largest database of systematic reviews. Prior to launching new review, we need to understand whether similar review article is published or not. And for narrative reviews, we may benefit, we need to understand how Lancet seminar articles are published, and we need to understand search strategies of our experts in rheumatology, in cardiology, in clinical medicine. So you see that most of them use Medline, Cochrane library, sometimes they use Embase. They strictly define keywords, logical or mesh keywords. They strictly define time frame, but it's not, let's say, 5 years. For some subjects, there is no need to limit our searches to a certain period of time. We may consider all articles, let's say, within the frames of COVID-19. We don't need any time limitation. We process all articles on COVID-19, but we specify, we use second keywords to specify and to look specifically on certain subjects. For structuring our review articles, we need to deal with citations. We need to retrieve some articles then go to their reference lists, manually search these reference lists to retrieve missing relevant articles. Bibliographic searches are mandatory, but to avoid missing references, sometimes we need also manual searches by analyzing reference lists of retrieved articles on Scopus, on Springerlink, or other platforms. But we don't need to cite unpublished sources, personal communications, or other newspaper articles. When we structure our review articles, I told you about PICO or PICO's tool. So for narrative reviews, we may analyze using the same tool, but these tools are used to draw tables. And in these tables, we should pay attention to strengths and limitations, positive and negative sides of processed literature sources. We need to distinguish main problem in narrative review articles. We also may provide a solution based on our narrative reviews, and also predict research continuation in certain fields. So narrative review articles are a valuable type of articles. And these articles are published by experts, PhD candidates, and also novice authors. No need to add any unusual structure, any unusual section in your narrative reviews. No need to mix structure of systematic review with narrative review. Tables are important, but we also sometimes need figures, authentic figures drawn by our authors. On rare occasions, we ask to get permission to adopt, to use adapted figures, but most of the time it's good practice to draw authentic new figures based on knowledge, based on topics covered, discussed in your review articles. Where to publish? Of course, you know where to publish, usually in journals welcoming review articles. Of course, you may publish rheumatoid arthritis in Lancet if you are an expert, if you published a lot in Scopus index journals, but usually Lancet or top journals are interested in submissions from Nobel Prize winners, submissions of authors who frequently publish trial reports, run and publish large cohort studies. So you should know that top journals have their circle of authors, have their gold authors. Of course, choosing target journal depends on a number of factors, including impact factor, social media attention, press attention. So you should consider all these factors in combination. No need to be obsessed with impact factor, and no need to be obsessed with quartiles of journals. Some of the new additions to Scopus, Web of Science, have low quartile, low impact factor, but still these journals are valuable and influential. Which review articles are influential? Review articles published in Lancet. Again, I present this example to inform you how to avoid publishing redundant review articles. Please search top journals, consider whether they, or if you choose a target journal, again, search through that target journal and consider whether the same or similar review article has been published. And of course, top journals published influential review articles. These review articles are highly cited. We may analyze, we may understand importance, and to understand importance of in terms of altmetrics and citations, we may go to altmetric.com, pay attention whether news notes discuss these reviews, whether Mendeley users bookmark these articles, pay attention to maps of social media attention. You see that usually uh, researchers and authors from Central Asia, from Eurasia are not active, whereas American scientists from Americas use Twitter and other social media channels, and they are quite active. We may also understand importance context of review articles uh, in view of Plum Analytics. Plum Analytics is integrated with Scopus. They display impact citation metrics and also tell us about Mendeley readership, other activities. Uh, you should also know that the same estimates of Mendeley readership on Plum Analytics and altmetric.com differ. So because they do use different algorithms, use different search strategies. So try to choose one a single information aggregator like altmetric.com and Plum Analytics. Why reviews are rejected? Because similar reviews are published recently in the same journal. So before submitting your review article to a target journal, process, uh, try to retrieve similar articles from the same journal, analyze, cite these articles, and convince journal editor that your review article or your article add something new. Poor language or so-called poor English, translated English, may be also considered as reasons for outright rejection. Review articles without graphs, without tables, without figures can be also rejected outright by without external peer review. Nobel Prize winners may publish authoritative reviews. However, novice researchers should be very careful with all statements, and they should provide balanced approach. If you publish review articles and number of auto citations to your previous articles is high, editor may ask whether these auto citations are relevant, whether useful, and whether other more useful, more relevant references may be used to replace numerous auto citations. We should also know that review articles have some aspects, dark aspects related to retractions. There are 500 retracted review articles. Some of them are from non-Anglophone countries, from China, from countries where copy and paste writing is not considered as misconduct. So I analyzed a sample of 27 retracted articles in rheumatology, and revealed in one of my old publications that plagiarism is a plague of review articles in rheumatology, particularly in the era of when anti-plagiarism software were non-existent. So you see that in rheumatology, we have 11 review articles, retracted review articles. Two of these review articles come from the same author group, Italian author group, non-Anglophone author group, who published plagiarized or copy-paste written articles. And these articles were retracted probably because they inappropriately processed information, copied and referred to primary sources, and authors of primary sources noticed and informed journal editors about plagiarism. But the worst case of review plagiarism come from Bernardino Sancomani, orthopedic surgeon from Italy, who published in a number of Springer and other journals plagiarized, copy-paste written review articles, which were published more than 10 years ago. When the publisher started checking all review articles via Authenticate, anti-plagiarism software, they discovered a number of copied articles by the same author. So again, this one is last slide for this part of presentation of our webinar. Again, I am open to your questions, to your comments. Let me start. You can now ask your questions. I'm open to your questions. Olena, any other questions? Any other comments? Professor Stoika, yes, please join.
I have a question.
You are with us? Yes.
Yes, of course. All time I am with everybody. So my question is, in the last maybe 10, 20 years, there is a huge number of review articles, sometimes not bad, but they are prepared by scientists who are not number one in the field. How do you consider, is it okay? I think not always.
I understand your point and your concern. Of course, all leading experts often write review articles, and they are often invited by large publishers to publish their reviews in good journals. However, when novice researcher without deep knowledge in a field draft review article and submit to a journal, it may be rejected outright and rightly rejected. But there is one point. PhD candidates start their research, start their career by reviewing sources. So they may draft review article as first chapter of their PhD dissertations, or they may choose systematic review. Both approaches are acceptable. In England, most PhD candidates first perform systematic review or narrative review with strict search strategy, publish it, include in their dissertation as first chapter, and then continue their research. Review articles well cited, and you know that review citations are also biased towards leading experts, leading scientists, and of course, readers who find review article by leading experts like you in your country, in your region, like rheumatologists, top rheumatologists writing rheumatoid arthritis. These are well cited. However, reviews by novice authors are poorly cited. Journal editors may consider these points and reject based on importance of articles.
And what is your attitude to the review articles with 200, 300 co-authors? You know such review.
I've never seen a review article with more than 10.
No. There are, for example, genome is 300. But genome is specific case, but there are still once in 2-3 years, 100 people who are in the field, they publish on apoptosis, for example, they publish review articles and it's well cited, but I don't know if new ideas are there.
Exactly. So it depends. So if we deal with narrative review, 3, 4, 5 authors are okay. If we deal with systematic reviews, these require more input from librarians, information scientists, expert statisticians. We may include more authors and ethically display their contribution, report their contribution. Genome-wide studies or genetic editing articles may include thousands of authors. It's also okay for these type of studies. It's okay. Clinical trial reports, again, it's okay to have thousands of authors from multiple centers, but if we if we come to case-based reviews, short studies with just dealing with few patients or covering comprehensively literature in a specific subject, again, we have to be ethical and we have to limit number of authors to logical value. Otherwise, our journal editor may question our approach and may ask to display contribution of each co-authorship. And if that contribution is not in line with International Committee of Medical Journal Editors criteria, they may even reject articles.
But I'm 100% sure that these 200 co-authors, they didn't read the manuscript. It's impossible.
200, 300 articles, of course, something odd, something bizarre for medics.
It's just for the name. It's not for the deal, for the name.
Yeah, but in physics, these type of articles are acceptable. Let's say they list all authors with minimal contribution or even without contribution. They simply list all authors in alphabetical order. In biomedicine, this type of this approach is unacceptable. We need to have strict approach to authorship, and we need to credit all those who deserve credit.
So go to cell death and differentiation maybe 1 or 2 years earlier, and you will find an article about the nomenclature in cell death.
The same with chemical articles, the same with physics articles dealing with certain materials. It's okay for physics, chemists, but for medics, we have our 4 authorship criteria, and we still stick to these criteria. Biologists, biomedical specialists, biochemists may also rely on these authorship criteria.
But you know, and the final question, because I'm too talkative, good scientist has citation approximately 3,000 citations. And thanks to 2 papers with 200 authors, he has 13,000 citations. So it's not, this citation index is not correct in this case.
Exactly. This type of citation behavior skews our metrics. So when we evaluate research output, when we evaluate individual author output, we should exclude all these articles with kilo authorship, with 1,000 authorship. Yeah. I know about Lancet global reports with thousands authors. They may include experts in certain fields from all over the world. But these type of articles should not be counted for research and academic promotion. Yeah, you are right, and your question was topical, to the point. Thank you. Okay. Can we move to other questions? Yes, we have a question from Alina Dimon. Today we have some participants, many participants from Romania, and I am thankful to them for their interest, for their questions. Alina Dima is a rheumatologist. She asked about auto citation. What percent of auto citation is too much for narrative review or other articles? Many auto citations might indicate that the author is expert in the field. Alina, you are quite right. Nobel Prize winners may publish review articles with 100% auto citations. However, and the same with rheumatologists. Let's say big names in rheumatology, Joseph Smolen, Ravinder Maini, and other experts in rheumatology may publish rheumatoid arthritis or biologics review and cite most of their previous studies, because the whole field of clinical model rheumatology is based on their studies. However, if novice researcher, research fellow with just few publications, 10, 20 publications, cite all these 20 publications in a review, journal editor may pick all these auto citations and may ask author to justify whether these citations are ethical, acceptable or not. So it depends who wrote review article. Some review articles with numerous auto citations, manipulative or coercive auto citations, may be also rejected. Not just rejected, but also retracted if readers consider this type of behavior unacceptable for the global authorship. Thank you for your activity and your great question. Another question from Professor Konstantinovich, another big name in pediatric rheumatology. He asked, there are some authors in medicine who have built their career and fame just exclusively on review articles. They seem to be specialized in review, systematic review, and their contribution appears highly authoritative. But I am afraid they may be somewhat self-appointed leaders. You are right. So a good scientist, good author should have a mix of different types of articles: review, case-based review, case report, letters, original research papers, academic contribution. Also is not limited to articles. Some reviewer activities, particularly for index journals, particularly visible on Pablon's platform, should be also counted as credible academic work. So we should count reviewer comments as well. Let's say 1,000 reviewer comment equal to one good review article published with Nature or with Lancet journal. Of course, for academic promotion, we should consider what type of articles, what type of academic activities are evaluated. And balanced approach should include diversified approach. If a researcher published review articles only, these type of educator or researcher not so competitive, not so suitable for academic promotion. But if we deal with novice researchers, it's okay. They may publish certain types of articles. Clinicians may publish just clinical case reports. It's acceptable because these are young scientists. They observe limited number of patients. They publish they publish case report, or nowadays they are asked to publish case-based reviews, and they may publish 10, 20, 30 case-based reviews. It's acceptable. But these type of authors can be promoted as clinicians. I know that in some countries, particularly in Turkey, researchers are promoted based on limited number of case reports and reviews. It's unacceptable in my mind. So we may ask these authors to think deeper, to consider other types of articles, altmetric analysis, or clinicians may benefit also from bibliometric analysis, particularly in the era of COVID-19 pandemic, or they may be also benefit from online surveys, because there is no need, sometimes there is no need to run new cohort study, new clinical trial. Simply you may run online survey, evaluate your colleagues' opinion and publish survey report. So it's also acceptable to publish so-called convenient or easy article types. Review articles are also relatively easy, but nowadays most journal editors require strict search strategy, strict approach to sources, so not so easy to publish, to draft and publish review articles. Are you satisfied? And or what's your opinion, Professor Konstantinovich? I cannot hear you. Now I can hear.
Well, I think I share the opinion of all the audience that we are very gratitude you provided us a very elegant and comprehensive lecture. But there are several questions. I try to be concise, but thank you for the explanation. I mentioned the authors who are specialized. It's kind of the review articles. I have several names as an exemplification. For example, in my osteoporosis area of expertise, there are from New famous man who is publishing from time to time negative studies about calcium negative influence, no effect of vitamin D, etc., etc. It's very attractive. So to conclude and to make the point more general, we appreciate, we value the personal approach of the authors, because I think this is the responsibility to write a review article is a huge responsibility, because the reader and clinicians, both researchers and clinicians, rely and take the content as a guide for some certain time, couple of months or years.
I think that
that's why this is a huge responsibility. The review should be balanced, and sometimes in the osteoporosis in bone journals there are several review articles on the same topic. too general, not specific, and there is a confusion. It makes a confusion because the reader needs one good author, and sometimes it's like a festival or just a competition of review articles. Who is the addressee of the new guidelines, new approach, new targets, future directions, and so on? I have many examples of the confusion. So my question is, in relation to what I said previously, how often should the review articles be published? There is a certain interval or not, every 2 years. Do we need, in the medical world, once annually, one per year, or just a summary of the 2 previous years? It's very interesting. How often do we need review articles? Because the readers are really relying on and really trusting in the review. So, if it's too much, we are really confused. And sometimes the texts, the contents and the citations are repetitive, auto-repetitive, still the same vicious circle. It's another art or ability how to read and consume the review articles. You taught us a lot about how to consume the content, Armen. That's why I'm very gratitude for providing us the important, really important issues.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's
Thank
it.
you.
That's it for the comment.
I got your point. So review articles are well cited, and they may change direction of research in certain fields. Review articles published by top scientists in osteoporosis, in rheumatology, they may change their field enormously, particularly reviews written by big names. But the same big names, particularly those related to pharmaceutical industry, may change points in their new review and ask and guide towards certain pharmaceutical agents, pharmaceutical companies. These are also important points. Journal editors should be in a position to understand risks of publishing, benefits and risks, should balance benefits and risk of publishing review articles, and envisage also citations. For their journals, they should know how many percentage or upper limit or acceptable limit of reviews. There are some review journals, of course, Nature reviews rheumatology, 100% of articles are review articles. But most other rheumatology and other specialist journals should have balanced approach. 20-30% of articles limited to review articles. And review articles for top journals rarely published. Let's say Lancet seminar reviews are rarely published. These are well cited, and I'm sure that these review articles are pillars of science, pillars of fields of science. However, there are now many other journals like Lancet Rheumatology, Nature Reviews Rheumatology, and all these top journals are for experts. So this elitist approach, particularly directed towards publishing reviews only, may have skewed approach to citations. You see, few days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, impact factors were published by Clarivate Analytics, and we see that all review journals have astronomically high impact factors, like Cancer Journal for Clinicians. And some ordinary authors may be confused comparing these top journals with valid other journals with impact factor 2 or impact factor 1. So we should be very careful with review journals. So, and we should understand limits of playing with impact factors, so-called playing with citations. Citations reflect professional community attitude towards certain articles, individual articles, but most often they may also be inflated or increased by certain tricks, by promotion approaches, not always professional approaches, using Twitter bots, robots, or other approaches. So we should understand, as journal experts, as professionals, we should understand context of citations and impact metrics. Thank you. Yeah, I think I responded to your comment and question. Olena?
Thank you, Arman. You generously shared with us your rich editors and authors experience. I am sure that now our participants know almost all about review articles.
And probably will start drafting good review articles.
Yes.
Yeah, we need their good review articles, innovative, containing good points, and we need also case-based review. So now I'm going to move further
was the last part of our today's agenda. Yes.
Not last. We have still 2 points.
Yes.
So let me share my screen. Again, I have problems with sharing. Okay.
Yes. We can see your screen.
Okay. So we are going to discuss related topic, case-based reviews. And again, I expect numerous case-based reviews structured in line with today's recommendations. First of all, we should understand how to understand better case-based review. We should recall Sir William Osler, Canadian or British scientist, internal medicine specialist, founder of modern clinical medicine, internal medicine, who noticed that who asked all fellows always note and record the unusual. So case reports should be something unusual and publish it. If you discuss something, if you share your observation, single clinical observation with your colleagues, friends, discuss via letters, emails, it's not enough. You need to report it. In 1937, Hulusi Behçet published a report on first case of Behçet's disease or Behçet syndrome. And after that, a number of similar descriptive observations were published on the same vasculitis, venous vasculitis. And even these dermatologists, Hulusi Behçet, changed writing preferences of clinicians in Turkey and neighboring countries, or in the field of Behçetology. Now we know that the large number of articles in the field of Behçetology or Behçet's disease are clinical case reports. So single case studies as topic is considered as mesh term, and case reports is considered as publication type. Use these options to search relevant case reports via PubMed. Why we need case reports? Because case reports describe unusual side effects, like let's say side effects of vaccines, COVID, anti-COVID vaccines. They may help clinicians to start prospective studies, may help even to revise practice guidelines of professional studies. I recall first clinical observations of using biologics for ocular affection, eye affection in Behçet's disease, venous vasculitis. And these initial cases allowed to organize large prospective studies. Again, we should discuss examples related to atorvastatin, which is now used in prospective studies, and some clinicians also recommend statins to reduce cardiovascular risk in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. Again, these recommendations and prospective studies are based on initial clinical observations. In 1972, initial cases were reported on colchicine, anti-neutrophilic agent in familial Mediterranean fever, and years later, Food and Drug Administration approved these drugs for treatment of familial Mediterranean fever or rheumatic autoinflammatory disease. So Food and Drug Administration also registers a lot of biologics, a lot of other drugs based on certain evidence-based studies. Usually these are large trials, well-organized, randomized controlled trials, but if there is no evidence, they may approve some drugs, some approaches, therapeutic approaches based on lower level of evidence. So this type of approach is also acceptable. When we search, to have proper search on PubMed, we need to look at case reports as publication type. There are more than 2 million cases indexed and retrievable on PubMed. Those related to COVID-19 are roughly more than 7,800, and those related to Behçet's syndrome or Behçet's disease, roughly about 3,900. So again, those working on Behçet's disease in this particular field may use this approach to narrow the field of interest and investigate or evaluate only case reports, because Behçetology is largely based on descriptive individual case studies. There are no large cohort studies or large clinical trials. There are not many systematic reviews, and most clinical guidelines, practice guidelines, may be based on well-reported case reports. Here is an example of influential case report study or letter publishing, reporting 5 clinical cases of successful use of colchicine as a new anti-neutrophilic agent in 1972 in Boston, in US, in Jewish and Arabic patients, in patients with familial Mediterranean fever, in whom colchicine ceased or allowed to discontinue flares of these attacks, of this inflammatory disease. Now, pay attention to altmetric.com. You see that it's not so informative because it's old article, old letter, even though it's published by New England Journal of Medicine years ago, but it was published in the era of when social media was not so active. So we may consider this article as influential based on citations, large number of citations, and may also consider expert opinion. All expert rheumatologists consider this article as valuable, even though citations, social media attention not as high as many other articles in the same journal. The same colchicine was used in Behçet's disease. Rheumatologists know this disease and colchicine, and they know that initial cases of colchicine use were aimed to limit activity of neutrophils in Behçet's disease, and it turned out that colchicine is also effective in alleviating eye symptoms in patients with Behçet's disease, initially in 1975. So another short case study was published in Lancet. Again, this article is also influential, not as influential as previous because of some reasons, because of other studies, because colchicine more effective in familial Mediterranean fever, less effective in colchicine in Behçet's disease. This is why we may compare influence of these articles. So we should understand where all case reports are published. Let's say BMJ case reports. They publish more than 20,000 articles in the case studies since 2008. This journal doesn't have impact factor. They consider influence of their articles based on educational value. So case studies may be educational. We should know about consent form, and all journal editors should have consent form or should ask their authors to submit or to have statement on case written informed consent obtained from their patients. We know about Open Ukrainian Citation Index. It's valuable platform, search engine. And when I search BMJ case reports using this platform, it allows me to rank all articles, indexed articles, and rank them based on their citation citations. So I see that top cited articles, case studies not as high, these citations not so high. And I took automatic profile of the largest, highest top cited article in this journal. And I see again that Eurasians, those from Eastern and Central Europe, are not active on social media, not commenting on these case reports. Mostly, these articles are mostly commented by specialists from North America. But again, I see that there is some important information. Case studies published by BMJ case reports, well commented, particularly top cited articles, are commented on Twitter. So you see these numbers. As many other BMJ articles, case reports are also well commented on news outlets. You probably know that Central and Eastern Europeans also publish a lot in news platforms, but their publications are rarely counted by altmetric.com. If you justify importance of your news outlets for social media, for other reasons, these platforms will be also covered. We need standardized approach, and all case reports should be drafted in line with, reported in line with CARE or case report statement coming from BMC publisher. So pay attention to clinical findings, to timeline, to correct diagnostic approach, therapeutic interventions, follow-up and outcomes of your case reports, and avoid any misleading information, any promotion of certain drugs, particularly those who cooperate with pharmaceutical companies. Case studies are single scientific observations. There is no need to generalize conclusions. Vital information may be missing in single case reports. However, case studies still valuable and influential in view of educational points. So, BMC publisher, one of the leading publisher of case reports, tells us that case studies should deal with something unusual, something unreported. They should tell us about something odd, unexpected outcomes of case clinical studies. They should show new associations, should formulate diagnosis correctly, etc., etc. Another approach, another recommendations on case reports: choose unusual cases, provide differential diagnosis, provide images, biopsies, formulate short and informative titles, and limit number of references for case reports. However, for case-based reviews, number of references can be larger, because case reports are combined with analysis of all similar case studies in a form of table. Another example of search strategy for case-based reviews: you combine searches via Medline with Scopus or other databases. Let's say pay attention to COVID-19 and report how many articles were retrieved from Medline, Scopus, Web of Science, and Lead COVID platform. Again, you may benefit from consulting recommendations on drafting narrative reviews. you may use new platform Lead COVID, entirely dealing with COVID-19 publications. You may pay attention to case reports dealing with COVID-19, particularly in the field of Behçet's disease. There are 19 case reports. Other approaches are also acceptable. You may use rheumatoid arthritis, you may use lupus and case studies related to COVID-19. Again, you need access to Scopus and Web of Science to have more advanced searches. You need searches performed via directory of open access journals or Open Ukrainian Citation Index. These are DOAJ is prestigious search, prestigious directory and search platform for open access journals, whereas Open Ukrainian Citation Index, well promoted by Nature journal, is used by Eastern European, Ukrainian scientists to increase visibility of local Ukrainian journals and articles tagged with digital object identifiers. Where we submit single case reports, we submit to good journals. Nature, Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine publish these type of articles. One of my friends from Iran published an article about extra medullary hemopoiesis in Lancet. It was published in 2008. We discussed this approach, we discussed prior to publication of this case report. And I remember that this publication was accepted after revisions, and authors were credited for their educational case study. Why cases are rejected? Because authors describe not so rare cases, there is nothing new. Diagnoses contain a lot of misleading or irrational points. Case reports do not contain visual components or ECGs, etc., etc. So if there is any point related or comment on case studies, I am open to your questions and comments. And then we'll move to our final part related to tips on altmetric analysis. Over to Olina. Olina. Okay, any questions on chat box about cases, case reports, and case-based reviews? We need not just case reports, but case-based reviews. Why? Because importance of these type of articles increases, because clinical case-based reviews cite a lot of relevant case reports. Attractiveness of this type of articles increases. So case-based reviews are more influential citation-wise and social media-wise. Any points, any comments?
May I just one short
Yes,
comment?
sure.
Of course, case reports is a jungle of published content. So some authors might feel worse scientists or academic scholars because they publish case reports only. However, we clinicians, we need the case reports, just single case reports. I don't mean in terms of the I don't mean case reports based reviews. However, single case reports or clinical vignette or clinical image, they teach us a lot, in particular in pediatrics. Just a short explanation. When I'm starting to treat a child or an adolescent with a very rare fragility, skeletal fragility or unknown osteoporosis, which is neither secondary nor primary. So I need to search, to screen some case reports that will allow me to get, you know, the moral, the ethical right to start treatment. This is my background. Same with some soft tissue calcinosis in juvenile dermatomyositis, skin calcinosis. Which drug, which agent should be used, and how could I communicate with parents? So case reports are sometimes really important for clinical practice. Of course, it's a jungle, as I said, and we could be lost. It's usually trivial and very boring for non-experts. It's just a trivial thing. However, if you look at specific, rare, ultra rare metabolic disease, you really focus on some reports, even very strange, from non-English speaking regions, from different parts of the globe, to support your clinical decision. And that's why we should not neglect. Some journals are clearly stating we do not accept case reports. And this is a clear, however, some case reports on the other hand might be as valuable as, you know, might be so valuable that could deserve a good journal like the Lancet or New England Journal of Medicine. The New England Journal of Medicine series of the medical quiz and some clues and clinical images, very short, 2 sentences, 1 image, are very educational, are very informative. Of course, you are famous when you get to the journal like New England Journal. However, it's a very fair word to share your knowledge and your practice with other clinicians and the researchers. And as you said, Armen, it's building step by step the new directions, like Behçet disease or just the new concepts. First case is always the first case. You know, there was always in the history, there has been somebody who started the treatment, who was brave enough, who was, you know, open-minded to start the treatment. And then, so the history of case reports is like insects in the natural world. They are necessary. Without the case reports, it would be very empty. So they are necessary. Although I'm aware the value in the evidence level is very, very low on the pyramid. We are all aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Konstantinovich. You are quite right. We need clinical cases, single observation, to change our clinical practice, to educate newcomers, new residents. So residents themselves may publish clinical case studies as a first type of articles in their academic career or clinical career. However, we should be very careful when we publish clinical case with erroneous diagnosis, with mistakes in diagnosis or misleading conclusions. We should also pay attention to implications of our clinical case. Of course, Behçet, Hulusi Behçet or Benedictos Adamantiades, who first described initial cases of Behçet syndrome or Behçet disease, they opened new direction in rheumatology, in internal medicine. However, nowadays quite difficult to open new direction by just publishing single case study. Perhaps in the field of COVIDology or in the field of coronavirus, we may publish something unusual and open new direction in the field of thrombology and COVIDology. But we rare see and we rare publish something unusual, something quite rare. There is one question on case reports by Svetlana Velikova about authorship. How to define authorship in case studies, case reports, and other types of articles. First of all, at the start of research, at the start of writing clinical cases, we should decide between ourselves, between our authors, who should be credited as author. If you do it before submission, before or after submission of your case report to journal, you may have a lot of problems. You may face a lot of problems. So be very careful when you omit any name of contributor, let's say radiologist or biology experts who supplied you with biopsy materials. Always acknowledge their contribution, and even acknowledgements with names of specialists should be discussed with these specialists, whether they agree to be credited in acknowledgements, or if they wish to be credited as real authors or full authors. So authorship credits depends on your institutional policies, on your department policies, or on your cooperation policies. And of course, we should be very careful, and we should not change authors' order, not just order, authorship contributions after submission of article to a journal. And we have also a question from Tatiana Zekic from Rijeka, Croatia. It could be also due to topics. I agree that some published article case studies are trivial, and she also mentioned that case-based reviews have more visibility than case studies when they published along with other article types. I agree with you, Tatiana Zekic. You are quite right. If we publish case studies or case-based reviews along with many other article types, visibility and citation prospects increase. You probably know that many journals publishing only case reports have low citation metrics, and they don't have even journal impact factor from Clarivate Analytics. This is why you are right. But please note that journals like BMJ Case Reports or Case Report Journal from Duff Press may obtain their citation metrics, and they increase visibility of published case reports mainly because of prestige of the publisher and available tools for promotion. Okay, Neslihan Gokchen, another.
And you also missed one question additional from Dr. Velikova, very interesting question. Can one case be presented from different aspects of different authors?
Oh, no, that's unacceptable for most journals, for most journal editors, and it's considered unethical or salami slicing. When you see a patient, you collect all data, comprehensively analyze, and report that case. There is no need to publish 2 or 3 articles based on the same single patient, covering different aspects. It's considered as salami publishing. So be very careful. Avoid this type of publishing. And of course, Dr. Neslihan Gokchen asked, she agreed with Professor Konstantinovich that case reports are really valuable. I understand your point of view as a clinician, but I believe that case reports are not accepted as valuable as case-based reviews. You are quite right. Influence of case reports differs from influence of case-based reviews. In the field of journalology, case-based reviews are more valuable. Why? Because they consider a wealth of evidence, a wealth of previously published cases, analyze these cases, and allow to distinguish important features in our own case. I recall case-based review by Tatiana Zekic, who published several years ago an important case report, which was analyzed in view of similar case reports of other authors. And it was published, well promoted, well commented, and well cited. So those who wish to increase citations to their case report should consider drafting their case study as a case-based review. Thank you. Olena, shall we move to final part of our?
We should discuss the final item of our agenda. Why do we need altmetrics, Dr. Arman? Why do we need altmetrics?
Okay.
Everything is fine.
Yeah, but I cannot find my.
Oh, please try again.
Second. Oh, let me. Mhm. Lena, I cannot share my screen. I don't know
Why? Why? You should choose share screen. Yes. Please, you should previously open your presentation on your laptop, and after that, choose share screen and choose your presentation. Yes, you have.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Good.
Yes, good. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, let's discuss a few tips on altmetric analysis. Hopefully, you will also do altmetric analysis, but before doing your altmetric analysis, you need to understand cross-sectional study designs, and altmetric analysis are also considered as cross-sectional studies. You need to retrieve a sample of articles from reliable databases, Web of Science core collection, Science Citation Index expanded, Social Science Citation Index, Emerging Sources Citation Index. From Scopus, you need articles from directory of open access journals, particularly those from Eastern Europe, Central Asia. Some of your journals are now covered, registered with directory of open access journals. So, and their platform is well fitted with search strategies, reliable search strategies. So you can use DOAJ. You can use Google Scholar as an alternative option for searches, but not the most important, but not the main. You may also use Dimensions, and you may use Open Ukrainian Citation Index. So importantly, Scopus, Dimensions, and Open Ukrainian Citation Index are integrated with social media aggregators, as opposed to other platforms and registries. So I consider Open Ukrainian Citation Index as a valuable source of information, bibliographic information, because it is based on latest achievements in the field of bibliographies, in the field of systematic and comprehensive search strategies. And for our systematic approaches to literature searches, we need to know not just citations, but also comments, and metrics coming from social media. Why we need Scopus? First of all, Scopus is the largest database because it allows us to cover most subject categories, most languages, and it is integrated with a number of useful platforms, particularly with Plum Analytics. It's another social media aggregator, or with social media channel or reference manager Mendeley. So probably our participants now know about importance of Mendeley bookmarkings as estimates of importance of or influence of articles, individual articles. To perform altmetric analysis, first we need to understand and we need reliable searches through Scopus. We need to know our keywords, logical or from mesh. We estimate total number of articles in our field of interest, then rank articles based on citations and pay attention to highly cited top 10, 20, 50, 100. We may calculate H index, Hirsch index, or of our topic, visualize annual publication activity based on Scopus, then rank top journals publishing in our field of interest, top authors, top affiliations and countries, identify prevalent subject areas, and also keywords. And these keywords may then be retrieved in Excel spreadsheet and analyzed using VOS Viewer. I'll show it a bit later. You see, I retrieved more than 500 articles in the field of rheumatoid arthritis and COVID-19. Paid attention which journals publish most in this field. Paid attention to top cited articles, top authors, countries, article types, and also areas of interest, medicine, biochemistry, immunology, etc. And then went to keywords related to this search option, rheumatoid arthritis and COVID-19, and then generated VOS Viewer. And here I see that human pneumonia, hydroxychloroquine, and many other keywords relate to rheumatoid arthritis and COVID-19. Some of large keywords more influential, more important, or more discussed than others. So researchers may benefit a lot from VOS Viewer for visualization of their bibliographic searches. And usually bibliographic and altmetric searches are combined and provide better visualization to our big literature sources, big data. So altmetric analysis are considered as cross-sectional. For that, we need a section of articles. We should perform our analysis within one day, within one or few days. Otherwise, our data will not be reliable. We should select articles of interest and analyze these articles using altmetric tools. For that, we need to choose aggregator. I am more biased or more prone to use altmetric.com. Others may use Plum Analytics, but there is also our research, third competitor to these altmetric aggregators. We need to understand what type of outcomes we need for our altmetric analysis. First of all, I showed these examples before today. So we may need to understand whether Twitter is the main channel, whether Mendeley is active in visualizing or evaluating, boosting importance of our articles. Then we should rank articles based on social media attention, based on altmetric attention score, AAS values. And finally, we may analyze citations in association with social media metrics, tweets, Facebook mentions, news outlet mentions, etc., etc. Most researchers may benefit if they use altmetric bookmarklet. Journal editors, publishers may use more advanced tools from the same provider. Altmetric analysis. There is not yet any entry related to altmetrics, but there is social media entry as a mesh term introduced in 2012. And this mesh term tells us that social media channels are those that easily created, where authors or creators easily create and navigate from one channel to another on internet, and there is high degree of interaction between these channels and between creator and viewer. So these are interactive channels, and altmetric analysis are also quite changing. So you may receive data within 1 hour, and next hour your data, real life data, will be different. So this is why this type of cross-sectional analysis should be focused on certain strict period of time. For all those who are going to use different channels to influence altmetrics, they need to know benefits and limitations of Twitter. The main limitation is just Twitter allows to entry short tweets with limited number of characters, with just one table, one figure, etc. Facebook is less used for academic promotion, academic activities, more used for personal purposes. Instagram is more used for articles, images, radiology articles, anatomy and rheumatology articles may be used also. But Instagram not counted by altmetric.com. So you should know about that. YouTube is used for promotion of video articles. Mendeley may be used to estimate or predict citations, may be used as reference manager, but at the same time can be used to evaluate importance of articles. And ResearchGate is a repository, individual research repository or social networking platform used by most researchers all over the world, in Eastern Europe, Central Asia. And these ResearchGate platform, again, not counted, not used by altmetric.com, but still influences visibility and dissemination of articles, because there is link, easy navigation link between ResearchGate and Twitter. So please use all these platforms, social media platforms, for promotion of your articles and for influencing field of altmetric. This way you may also better understand importance of altmetric analysis. Over to you. Questions, comments? Again, from our chat box.
We encourage our participants to ask questions on this topic, because topic is new. Not all our participants, clinicians especially, are familiar with this topic.
Okay, so before finalizing our webinar, let me express my sincere gratitude to all Romanians, Croatians, Bulgarians, Turkish, Ukrainian, Kazakhstani fellows who
Poland.
joined. Polish, yeah. We have two Polish researchers today, Professor Konstantinovich and Agnieszka, probably again from Bialystok. Thank you to all to their activities and to their interest, support. Without their support, this type of activity wouldn't be possible. So I hope that we'll arrange many other webinars with their support and involvement. And I expect a lot of comments, questions, and good positive feedback.
And dear Arman, first of all, many thanks to you for your regular support,
I accept
for
all.
arranging
Thank you.
probably about 20 webinars during the last 2 years. And I see that Professor Stoika would like to say a few words.
Dear man, I'm really amazed of your enthusiasm and your hard working. So thanks. The seminars were useful, and we will take them in the ideas in use in our work. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Stoika. Our Eastern European fellows should know that you are now president of Ukrainian Council of Science Editors, and this council is going to be an international association expanding towards other Central and Eastern European, primarily to European countries, and we are going to solve editing problems, to educate authors, to help journal editors from Central and Eastern Europe to index with Scopus, Web of Science, and why not with Medline. It's an ambitious association, council, and I encourage on behalf of our president and on behalf of our Secretary General Olena Zimba to expand cooperation towards Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Turkey, and Croatia. Yeah.
Thank you.
Why not? Yeah. Thank you very much. Olena?
It looks like we have covered all items of today's agenda. Thank you so much, Arman. Many thanks to all our participants for your regular contribution, your supports, and hope to see you on the next webinar.
Olena, you see number of participants
increased.
Yes, increased, but during today we had more than 30. Now we have 26. It's okay.
During summer vacation.
No. We could have worse. So 26, 25 is now good number, good. So it suggests that all our participants are interested in discussed topics, and we expect their good articles submitted to well-cited journals. Good luck, good health to our participants from Turkey. I see that they also joined us today. Neslihan Gökçen, Burhan Fatih Kocigit, Ahmet Akyol, and others. Bulgarians also quite active. I realized that today we have support of Bulgarian Association of Musculoskeletal Ultrasound. So it's okay, it's good. It means that they also may consider publishing case reports, case-based reviews in the near future. Romanians, they are newcomers to our webinar series. We are welcome, our Romanian friends, Alina Dima, rheumatologist, and other fellows mainly from Bucharest. Kazakhstani fellows, thank you for supporting, joining, and asking me to help you raise profile of your journals. You probably know that I consult the Central Asian Journal of Medical Hypothesis and Ethics. So it's also one of the emerging journals in the field. of medical hypotheses. So we expect your support in terms of submitting great hypotheses, scientific hypotheses, commenting our hypotheses, articles of our authors on social media using Twitter, primarily Twitter. We need Twitter because tweets are counted by, are included, processed by altmetric attention score algorithm. But of course, on Facebook, on other channels also, all attention on social media is counted, all types of activities, tweets, retweets with professional comments. So try to be more active and always consider citations with social media attention in combination. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.